You want to know the truth nobody wants to hear about female friendships? It's not all heart-shaped emojis and endless support. Forget the Instagram perfect brunches and those smiling selfies tagged #BestiesForever. Beneath that glossy surface lies a battlefield disguised as bonding. Female friendships, as much as society preaches sisterhood and solidarity, often harbor a darker reality, a paradox where closeness breeds rivalry, and loyalty isn't the automatic currency you're led to believe it is. You think it's just harmless jealousy or petty squabbles? Think again. This is a complex web of emotional warfare, played out in whispers, side eyes, and calculated smiles that slice deeper than any outright confrontation. Look around you. How many times have you seen a woman rise in social circles only to have a supposed friend shrink away, eyes flickering with envy? How often do you witness friendly conversations that end in stabbing gossip or subtle exclusion? The woman who smiles in your face while plotting your social undoing isn't a myth. She's a reality wrapped in the cloak of social expectations and cultural myths that insist women must be nurturing and supportive. It's a cruel irony. Society demands tight-knit female friendships, yet those very bonds can become the source of the sharpest emotional wounds. You never hear about this side because it's uncomfortable, even taboo. Talking openly about female rivalry feels like betraying a sacred code. Yet, the woman who's been burned by a friend's betrayal knows the truth too well. The pain isn't just emotional, it's an assault on identity and trust. When a friendship turns toxic, it's not just about one incident, it's a slow erosion of faith, a series of betrayals small and large that leave you questioning your own worth. That's the sick part. The woman who once felt like a sister can become your fiercest competitor, your harshest critic, and your deepest source of insecurity. This isn't just anecdotal bitterness. Psychologists and sociologists have observed this phenomenon repeatedly. Female friendships are often layered with unspoken tensions, a mixture of affection and competition that's as old as social groups themselves. You want to know why? Because women, like men, navigate a social world that demands both cooperation and competition. But here's the catch: female competition is often covert, emotionally charged, and wrapped in the guise of politeness and concern. It's a game played with smiles and silences rather than open hostility. You never see the dagger coming until it's lodged deep in your back. The paradox is that female friendships are encouraged to be intimate and emotionally revealing, but this intimacy can become a weapon. Sharing secrets and vulnerabilities creates a double-edged sword. It builds trust, yes, but it also arms the other person with ammunition. The woman who knows your fears and insecurities can either become your greatest ally or your worst enemy. And when that trust is broken, the fallout isn't just personal, it's social. The woman who has been betrayed feels isolated, doubting not only the friend who turned on her but questioning her own judgment and value. The social circles tighten, and the victim finds herself on the outside, abandoned and bewildered. You never hear about the emotional confusion this causes, either. It's not just anger or sadness, it's a profound sense of loss. The woman who invested time, energy, and emotion into a friendship ends up questioning if it was all an illusion. The emotional toll is heavy, sometimes crippling. Anxiety, depression, and self-doubt often follow these ruptures. And here's the kicker: because female friendships are socially idealized, the woman suffering from betrayal often feels shame. She wonders if she's the problem, if she's overreacting, or if she simply failed to be a good enough friend. Terrified of appearing weak or petty, she stays silent, nursing wounds that fester beneath the surface. This hidden pain is why female friendships are far from the sisterhood they pretend to be. They're complicated, fragile, and sometimes downright dangerous to emotional well-being. You want to know the truth nobody wants to hear? The woman who seems your strongest supporter can also be your fiercest rival. The trust you build can be weaponized. And the social bonds that should protect you can leave you exposed and vulnerable. You never know which side of the coin you're dealing with until it's too late. The woman who navigates these friendships has to be constantly on guard, reading between the lines, decoding smiles that don't reach the eyes, and watching for signs of shifting alliances. The landscape of female friendship is a minefield, where a single misstep can trigger a cascade of social rejection and personal heartbreak. The emotional stakes are sky high because these relationships are often the closest many women have. Losing a friend isn't just losing a companion, it's losing a piece of your social identity and emotional support system. And society doesn't make this easier. From an early age, women are socialized to value relationships as central to their identity. Friendship isn't just a choice, it's a necessity. Yet, this necessity comes with strings attached, expectations of unwavering loyalty, emotional labor, and sacrifice. The woman who fails to meet these expectations risks judgment and exclusion. So, the pressure to maintain appearances is intense. Fake smiles, forced kindness, and silent resentments become survival tools. You want to know the sick part? Many of these betrayals are calculated and deliberate. It's not always spontaneous jealousy or misunderstanding. Sometimes, it's cold, strategic moves designed to protect one's social standing or to eliminate perceived threats. The woman who thinks loyalty is automatic? She's in for a harsh awakening. Female friendships demand vigilance, emotional savvy, and sometimes a thick skin. You never truly know who's rooting for you and who's waiting for you to stumble. You want to know the truth nobody wants to hear? Female friendships can be a battlefield disguised as a garden of blooms. The thorns are hidden but sharp, and the wounds they inflict run deep. So, what drives this paradoxical dynamic? Why do these bonds that promise comfort and support so often deliver pain and suspicion? The answer lies in the complex mix of social expectations, emotional needs, and survival instincts. Women are wired for connection, but they're also competing for limited resources, be it social status, romantic attention, or emotional validation. This competition doesn't usually erupt into overt fights like it might among men. Instead, it simmers beneath the surface, expressed in subtle digs, exclusion, and emotional manipulation. The woman who learns to navigate this terrain without falling prey gains a form of social armor, but it's a hard-earned and often deeply lonely shield. You want to know the truth nobody wants to hear? Female friendships are not the safe havens they claim to be. They are fraught with contradictions, love and rivalry, trust and betrayal, support and sabotage. And the woman who steps into this arena unprepared often pays a steep price. The emotional fallout can linger for years, shaping how she approaches relationships and trust in the future. You never hear this side because it's uncomfortable, even taboo. But the woman who's been through it knows the truth all too well. Female friendships are a complex dance of intimacy and competition, where the stakes are high and the rules are unspoken. This is the dark reality behind the smiles, the shared secrets, and the social media posts. It's a world where loyalty is earned, not given. And sometimes, it's taken away without warning. You want to know why this toxic dance plays out so relentlessly? Why the woman who should be your closest ally sometimes turns into your fiercest adversary? It's not just bad luck or coincidence. There's a psychological and evolutionary blueprint behind these betrayals that few are willing to acknowledge. This isn't just petty drama or immaturity, it's hardwired into the way women navigate the social world, a survival mechanism shaped by millennia of competition and cooperation. Think about it, at the core, human beings, men and women alike, are wired to compete for resources. But here's the kicker. For women, the resources aren't just food or territory. They're social status, emotional support, and yes, even reproductive opportunities. This competition is subtle, strategic, and often emotional rather than physical. Unlike the blunt force clashes you might see in male rivalries, female competition operates in whispers, glances, and carefully constructed social moves. You never see the punch coming. Instead, you feel the sting of exclusion, the cold shoulder, or the slow drip of gossip. Evolutionary psychology points to intersexual competition as a root cause. Women have historically been judged, and judged themselves, based on their ability to secure and maintain social alliances. These alliances aren't just for companionship, they're lifelines for raising children, sharing resources, and mutual protection. But in a world of limited social capital, every alliance formed by one woman can feel like a loss to another. You want to know the truth nobody wants to hear? This competition isn't just external, it's internalized. Women often police each other's behaviors, appearance, and social moves to maintain their own standing. This creates a paradox. Women are biologically and socially encouraged to form close bonds, yet those bonds come with an undercurrent of rivalry. The woman who smiles at you may be calculating her next move, weighing how your success or happiness affects her own social position. Envy, that ugly emotion we all pretend doesn't exist, becomes a powerful undercurrent. It's not just jealousy over material things, it's envy over attention, affection, and validation. And since direct confrontation is culturally discouraged, these feelings fester beneath the surface, expressed through passive-aggressive acts and emotional manipulation. Psychologists have identified what they call relational aggression as a hallmark of female competition. This isn't about fistfights or shouting matches, it's about weaponizing social connections to hurt others. Gossip, exclusion, rumor spreading, these tools are used to undermine rivals without overt violence. It's a silent war fought in coffee shops, group chats, and social media threads. The woman who engages in this isn't necessarily evil or malicious, she's often responding to the same pressures that you face. It's survival, emotional survival, in a world that demands both connection and competition. Social bonding itself is a double-edged sword. Oxytocin, the so-called bonding hormone, promotes trust and cooperation, but it also heightens sensitivity to social rejection and betrayal. The woman who feels deeply connected is also the one most vulnerable to being hurt. This biological sensitivity means female friendships can be incredibly intense, filled with love and loyalty, but also capable of inflicting profound pain. You want to know the truth nobody wants to hear? The deeper the bond, the sharper the potential betrayal. Think about the social hierarchies that form among women. These aren't always obvious or formal, but they're present in every circle, workplaces, schools, social groups. Status is currency, and women compete fiercely to maintain or elevate their rank. This competition can manifest in subtle ways: who gets invited to the party, whose opinion holds weight in a group, or who attracts the most attention from potential romantic partners. Each small victory or defeat can ripple through the network, affecting relationships and emotional well-being. And here's where the cultural scripts amplify the problem. Society glorifies female friendship as nurturing and harmonious, yet it simultaneously pits women against each other through impossible standards and contradictory expectations. The woman who appears effortlessly perfect sets a bar that fuels envy and insecurity. Media portrayals rarely help either. How many movies and TV shows revolve around female rivalry, catfights, and backstabbing? These narratives don't just reflect reality, they reinforce it, normalizing suspicion and competition as inevitable parts of female social life. Social media throws gasoline on the fire. Platforms designed for sharing and connection often become arenas for comparison and jealousy. The woman who posts a picture of success or happiness isn't just sharing a moment, she's unknowingly triggering a chain reaction of envy and insecurity. Likes, comments, and followers become metrics of social value, and the invisible scorecard fuels competition. The woman who scrolls through her feed can feel diminished, excluded, or overshadowed, intensifying the fragile dynamics within friendships. This psychological cocktail, evolutionary drives, social pressures, and cultural narratives, creates a perfect storm for rivalry disguised as friendship. The woman who seems your closest confidant might be balancing affection with a secret calculus: how does your gain affect my position? The emotional stakes are sky high because the competition isn't just about social standing, it's deeply tied to identity, self-worth, and survival. You want to know the truth nobody wants to hear? The woman who betrays isn't always a villain, she's often a product of complex forces beyond her control. Her envy and competition are reflections of her own insecurities and fears. This doesn't excuse the pain she causes, but it explains why female friendships can be so fraught with tension. The emotional turmoil isn't random, it's a predictable outcome of the psychological and evolutionary dynamics at play. Understanding this doesn't make it easier to endure betrayal, but it shines a light on why it happens so often and why it cuts so deep. Female friendships are emotional battlegrounds where love and rivalry intertwine. The woman who learns to recognize these underlying forces gains an edge, a form of emotional intelligence that helps her navigate the treacherous waters. She knows when to trust, when to guard her vulnerabilities, and when to walk away before the damage is done. So, the next time you wonder why the woman you trusted suddenly turns cold, or why subtle slights sting so much more than they should, remember this: you're witnessing the clash of ancient survival instincts and modern social pressures. It's a raw, unfiltered reality that no amount of platitudes or cultural myths can fully erase. Female friendships are as complex and contradictory as the women who inhabit them, woven from threads of affection, envy, loyalty, and competition. And that's just the beginning. The psychological and evolutionary layers beneath the surface are vast and tangled, shaping every interaction and every silent battle. You want to know the truth nobody wants to hear? This isn't just about individual flaws or mistakes, it's about deeply ingrained patterns that have been etched into human nature over thousands of years. The woman who understands this is better equipped to survive these friendships with her heart and sanity intact. But don't get it twisted, awareness doesn't mean resignation. Knowing why the woman who should be your ally sometimes becomes your rival is the first step toward breaking the cycle. You want to know the truth nobody wants to hear? These patterns can be challenged, unraveled, and changed. But it takes courage, insight, and a willingness to see the raw, uncomfortable reality beneath the pretty surface. Because female friendships are not just emotional connections, they're battlegrounds shaped by psychology, evolution, and culture. And if you step into that arena without understanding the rules, you're setting yourself up to get hurt. You want to know how this toxic cycle keeps spinning, feeding itself like an endless fire? Society and media are the fanning winds that keep those flames roaring. It's not just the natural psychological and evolutionary stuff at play here, no, there's a whole cultural machine designed to stoke the tensions between women, not calm them down. Think about it, from the moment girls are young, they're handed scripts filled with contradictions and expectations that pit them against each other while preaching unity. The woman who doesn't fit these molds is often scrutinized, judged, and cast out. It's a breeding ground for insecurity and rivalry. You see it everywhere. Advertisements, movies, TV shows, and social media feeds constantly replay the same narratives. Women are catty, jealous, and untrustworthy. The woman who shines too brightly is bound to be knocked down by her friends. The one who appears too happy or successful invites envy and suspicion. This isn't just lazy storytelling, it's a cultural echo chamber reinforcing the idea that female friendship is a minefield. You want to know the truth nobody wants to hear? These portrayals don't just reflect reality, they create it. Social media, in particular, is a double-edged sword. On one hand, it offers unprecedented connectivity, on the other, it magnifies jealousy, comparison, and exclusion. The woman scrolling through feeds filled with carefully curated lives can't help but compare herself to the highlight reels of others. Likes and comments become a distorted form of social currency, a public scoreboard that fuels insecurity. The woman who posts a picture of success isn't just sharing joy, she's unintentionally drawing fire. The woman who scrolls past, feeling less than, may harbor silent resentment, a seed that can sprout into passive-aggressive behavior or gossip. It's a breeding ground for mistrust, and the friendships that should offer support instead become battlegrounds for competition. Society's expectations don't stop at media influence. Women are socialized to be caretakers, peacemakers, and emotional anchors. They're expected to prioritize relationships, often at the expense of their own needs. The woman who fails to maintain these bonds is labeled selfish or cold. This pressure creates an emotional labor trap, where women invest heavily in friendships, managing feelings, and smoothing over conflicts, but rarely receive the same effort in return. You want to know the truth nobody wants to hear? This imbalance breeds resentment, even if it's buried deep beneath politeness. The woman who carries the emotional weight often ends up exhausted and vulnerable to betrayal. Cultural myths about female friendship are another layer of complication. The idea that women are naturally more empathetic, nurturing, and loyal sets impossible standards. When friendships falter, it's often framed as a personal failure, either you didn't try hard enough, or you weren't a good enough friend. The woman who experiences betrayal is left not only hurt but also doubting her own worth. You never hear this side because it's uncomfortable, even shameful. But the truth is far messier. Female friendships are not automatically virtuous or pure, They are complicated human relationships shaped by cultural expectations that don't always match reality. This mismatch fuels toxic dynamics. The woman who feels she must uphold an image of perfect friendship often suppresses genuine feelings of anger, jealousy, or disappointment. These unspoken emotions don't disappear, they fester, turning into passive aggression, backhanded compliments, and subtle social sabotage. You want to know the truth nobody wants to hear? Many betrayals are born not of outright malice but of this simmering emotional stew, resentment mixed with fear of rejection and failure. The woman who acts out often does so because she feels trapped by these cultural scripts. And the effects ripple beyond individual friendships. Social circles fracture, alliances shift, and women find themselves navigating a maze of social politics just to maintain their place. The woman who steps out of line risks exclusion or gossip campaigns that can destroy reputations. This social policing keeps the cycle going, ensuring that mistrust and competition remain the norm. You want to know the truth nobody wants to hear? The culture around female friendship is not just permissive of rivalry, it often rewards it, either overtly or through silent approval. This dynamic is especially toxic in workplaces and other professional settings. Women are expected to collaborate and support each other, yet the competitive undercurrents run deep. Promotions, recognition, and influence are limited resources that intensify rivalry. The woman who tries to break through the glass ceiling can find herself isolated, undermined by colleagues who see her as a threat rather than an ally. Social media only adds fuel to this fire, office gossip spreads faster, and public perceptions are harder to control. The woman who navigates these spaces without falling prey to the politics is rare, and often paid in emotional exhaustion. You want to know the truth nobody wants to hear? The cultural narratives and social pressures surrounding female friendships don't just hurt individuals, they hurt women as a whole. They perpetuate a cycle where women are pitted against each other instead of united, where mistrust and jealousy are the default settings rather than empathy and support. This cultural setup ensures that the wounds inflicted by female rivalry cut deep and heal slowly. And yet, amid all this toxicity, women still crave genuine connection. They still seek friendships that provide comfort, understanding, and loyalty. The tension between this desire and the cultural reality creates an emotional tug-of-war. The woman who dares to trust fully risks heartbreak, but the one who shuts down risks loneliness and isolation. It's a no-win situation reinforced by the very society that claims to value female solidarity. Media and cultural myths, instead of offering models of healthy female relationships, often glorify the drama. Reality TV, celebrity feuds, and viral social media conflicts feed the stereotype of women as inherently competitive and untrustworthy. This creates a feedback loop. Women internalize these stories, anticipate betrayal, and sometimes act out the roles they're expected to play. You want to know the truth nobody wants to hear? The culture doesn't just reflect female rivalry, it scripts it. This cultural scripting makes recognizing genuine friendship harder. The woman who approaches relationships with openness and trust can be vulnerable to manipulation by those playing the social game with cold calculation. The woman who learns to read these cultural currents gains an edge. She knows when to hold on, when to step back, and when to protect herself. But this knowledge comes at a cost: cynicism, guardedness, and a perpetual sense of wariness. You want to know the truth nobody wants to hear? Female friendships don't exist in a vacuum. They're shaped and distorted by societal expectations, media portrayals, and cultural myths that often reward competition and punish vulnerability. The woman who wants to survive this landscape needs more than kindness and goodwill. She needs awareness, strategy, and sometimes a thick skin. So, the next time you see a woman hesitate to fully trust another, or notice a friendship quietly unraveling over petty slights and unspoken resentments, remember this: the culture around female friendship is a complex web of pressure and expectation designed to keep women divided. It's a system that thrives on mistrust, jealousy, and competition, and it's relentless in its grip. You want to know the truth nobody wants to hear? Until these cultural myths and social pressures are challenged and dismantled, female friendships will continue to be battlegrounds disguised as bonds. The woman who steps into this arena without understanding the cultural forces at play is setting herself up for pain and disappointment. You want to know what happens when the polished facade of female friendship cracks? When the silent war beneath the surface finally explodes into betrayal, exclusion, or emotional manipulation. The fallout isn't just messy, it's devastating. Female friendships, when they collapse, don't just leave you with a broken bond, they leave emotional scars that cut deeper than most realize. The woman who's been stabbed in the back by a friend knows this pain intimately. It's a betrayal that goes beyond simple disappointment. It shakes the foundations of trust, self-worth, and belonging. Think about it. The woman who once shared secrets, dreams, and vulnerabilities becomes the source of your deepest wounds. Gossip spreads like wildfire, whispers shape perceptions, and suddenly you're the outsider in a circle that once felt like home. The woman who was your confidant now holds the power to isolate you, turning social warmth into coldness, inclusion into exclusion. This isn't just social discomfort, it's a form of emotional assault that feeds on the close connection you once had. You never hear enough about the loneliness that follows. The woman who's lost a friend to betrayal often finds herself abandoned in silence, cut off from the very network she relied on for support. Isolation breeds self-doubt. You start questioning everything, your judgment, your worth, your very identity. Terrified of being vulnerable again, you pull back, retreating into yourself to avoid further pain. But that withdrawal only deepens the wound, creating a cycle of solitude and suspicion that's hard to break. Emotional manipulation is another weapon in this toxic arsenal. The woman who's betrayed might find her feelings twisted or dismissed, her experiences minimized or invalidated. It's just a misunderstanding, they say. Or worse, you're overreacting. These dismissals aren't accidents, they're part of the social game that keeps the betrayer in control and the betrayed silenced. The woman who tries to speak out risks being labeled dramatic or irrational, further isolating her from the group. And the damage isn't just emotional, it ripples into mental health. Anxiety, depression, and low self-esteem often follow these ruptures. The woman who was once confident and secure can become anxious, fearful of future friendships, and reluctant to trust. This emotional fallout colors every interaction, making it harder to form new bonds or maintain existing ones. You want to know the truth nobody wants to hear? The scars from female friendship betrayals can linger long after the friendship ends, shaping how a woman navigates relationships for years to come. These betrayals often stem from misunderstandings or competition, but their effects are painfully real. The woman caught in the crossfire is left to pick up the pieces of her shattered trust and bruised ego. And here's the bitter irony, because female friendships are socially idealized, the betrayed woman often feels isolated not just from her friends but from the broader cultural narrative. She's stuck between the myth of perfect sisterhood and the harsh reality of rivalry and betrayal. You want to know the truth nobody wants to hear? The woman who's been burned learns to recognize the signs too late. The subtle exclusions, the whispered comments, the sudden coldness, all the warning signals she ignored or rationalized away. But the pain of realization is sharp and unforgiving. It's a lesson in human nature and social dynamics that leaves her wary, guarded, and sometimes cynical. This emotional fallout also affects social circles as a whole. Groups fracture, alliances shift, and trust erodes. The woman who witnessed the betrayal may feel torn, caught between loyalty and self-preservation. The social fabric that once held the group together becomes threadbare, leaving everyone vulnerable to further conflict and isolation. You want to know the truth nobody wants to hear? The aftermath of a betrayal isn't just personal, it's a social earthquake that reshapes the landscape of friendship networks. Yet, despite the pain and the fallout, these experiences offer a harsh but necessary education. The woman who survives betrayal gains a deeper understanding of human nature and social dynamics. She learns to read the subtle signals, to guard her vulnerabilities, and to question the idealized narratives she was taught. This knowledge is a bitter medicine but a powerful one, equipping her to navigate future friendships with greater caution and clarity. But beware, the scars can also harden hearts. The woman who's been hurt may build walls so high that genuine connection becomes impossible. Fear of betrayal can breed mistrust, turning potential allies into distant acquaintances. You want to know the truth nobody wants to hear? The aftermath of female friendship betrayal is a double-edged sword. It can teach resilience, but it can also imprison you in loneliness and suspicion. Emotional fallout doesn't discriminate by age or background. Whether it's teenage friendships torn apart by rumor mills or adult relationships fractured by competition and jealousy, the pain is universal. The woman who's been betrayed carries the weight of that pain into new social contexts, sometimes unconsciously sabotaging opportunities for connection. This cycle perpetuates itself, feeding the myth that female friendships are inherently unstable and fraught with risk. And here's the cruel irony: because these betrayals are often hidden behind polite smiles and social niceties, the true extent of the damage remains invisible to outsiders. The woman who appears strong and composed may be nursing wounds that no one else sees. You want to know the truth nobody wants to hear? The emotional fallout of female friendship betrayal is a silent epidemic, quietly shaping women's lives and relationships in profound ways. So, when you witness the quiet exclusion of a woman from her social circle, or hear the whispered gossip that tears down reputations, know this: you're witnessing the aftermath of emotional warfare. The woman caught in the crossfire is fighting battles you can't see, battles that leave scars deeper than any physical wound. And the social world that expects unwavering friendship often offers little comfort or understanding. You want to know the truth nobody wants to hear? The effects of betrayal in female friendships extend far beyond the severed ties. They reshape identities, erode trust, and leave emotional wounds that bleed long after the friendship has ended. The woman who's been betrayed must navigate not only the loss of a friend but the fractured pieces of her own self. You want to know the sick part? The cultural myths that pit women against each other aren't just stories, they're poison, seeping into the very fabric of female friendships and poisoning the well of trust before it can even form. The woman who buys into these myths is set up to fail, caught in a web of expectations that demand perfection, loyalty, and emotional labor without reciprocal support. You want to know the truth nobody wants to hear? Recognizing the dark side of female friendships is the first, brutal step toward healing, and it's a step too many women refuse to take. Let's be clear: the narrative that women are natural enemies, destined to sabotage each other, is a lie. But it's a lie so deeply ingrained that it shapes behavior, often unconsciously. The woman who internalizes this myth approaches friendships with suspicion, guarding her vulnerabilities like a fortress. She expects betrayal before it happens, and in doing so, she sometimes becomes the very thing she fears: a rival instead of a sister. This cycle feeds itself, creating a self-fulfilling prophecy that's hard to break. But what if it didn't have to be this way? What if female friendships could be more than survival games and social chess matches? The woman who dares to challenge these myths, who refuses to see her friends as threats but as allies, opens herself to a different kind of connection. It's messy, it's risky, and it requires a level of emotional honesty that most aren't prepared for. But it's also the path to resilience, empowerment, and genuine sisterhood. The first sign of toxic friendship is often subtle: a feeling of exhaustion after interactions, a sense of walking on eggshells, or the nagging doubt about whether you're truly valued. You want to know the truth nobody wants to hear? Ignoring these signals doesn't make them disappear. The woman who ignores the warning signs is like a soldier walking blindly into a trap. Learning to recognize these red flags, passive aggression, one-sided emotional labor, manipulative behavior, is crucial. It's not about paranoia, it's about self-preservation. Once you see the signs, setting boundaries becomes essential. The woman who refuses to protect her emotional well-being invites chaos into her life. Boundaries aren't just walls, they're guidelines that protect your energy and your sense of self. Saying no, stepping back, or calling out toxic behavior isn't cruelty, it's survival. And survival in the world of female friendship is an act of courage. But the path to healing isn't just about defense. It's about cultivating empathy, transparency, and trust. The woman who wants to transform her friendships needs to be willing to be vulnerable without fear of exploitation. Transparency means sharing your feelings honestly and expecting the same in return, not just the glossy surface stuff, but the raw, uncomfortable truths. This kind of openness can fracture friendships, sure, but it can also forge bonds that are stronger than any social game. Empathy is the glue that holds these genuine connections together. It's the ability to see beyond your own pain and insecurity and recognize the struggles of the other woman. The woman who practices empathy understands that jealousy, fear, and competition are often masks for deeper wounds. She meets these with compassion rather than judgment. This doesn't mean tolerating abuse or manipulation, it means seeing the humanity beneath the armor and choosing connection over conflict. You want to know the truth nobody wants to hear? Building these kinds of friendships takes work and intentionality. It requires rejecting the cultural scripts that glorify rivalry and instead embracing narratives of collaboration and support. The woman who commits to this path creates a space where trust can grow, where loyalty is earned and given freely, and where betrayal loses its power because it's confronted, not ignored. This shift isn't just personal, it's cultural. When enough women reject the myths that fuel competition and suspicion, the entire landscape of female friendship changes. The woman who becomes part of this movement isn't just saving herself, she's paving the way for others to find solidarity and strength. It's a quiet revolution, one conversation, one boundary, one act of empathy at a time. But be warned, this journey isn't easy. The woman who challenges the status quo risks alienation, ridicule, and the loss of friendships built on old patterns. She must be prepared to stand firm in her values, even when it feels like the world is pushing her to conform. You want to know the truth nobody wants to hear? True sisterhood is rare because it demands authenticity and courage in a culture that rewards masks and manipulation. Still, the rewards are worth it. The woman who cultivates honest, empathetic friendships finds a source of strength and resilience that no betrayal or rivalry can erode. These friendships become safe havens, a refuge from the social games and emotional battles. They offer not just support but empowerment, helping women reclaim their agency in a world that often tries to divide them. So, if you're tired of the endless cycle of suspicion and hurt, start here. Refuse to buy into the myths that set women against each other. Learn to see the warning signs of toxic friendship and protect yourself with boundaries. Dare to be vulnerable and demand transparency. Practice empathy, even when it's hard. And above all, commit to building friendships that lift you up rather than tear you down. You want to know the truth nobody wants to hear? Female friendships don't have to be battlegrounds. They can be gardens, wild, messy, imperfect, but capable of blooming into something real and powerful. The woman who chooses to cultivate that garden is the one who breaks the cycle and redefines what sisterhood truly means. If you love the story, like the video and subscribe.